interesting. It's such an uncomfortable topic to talk about, especially for a guy, young guys in their early 20s. And, I'm glad that, I could tune in and, listen to you guys.
Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
What's happening, guys? Probably heard a little bit behind the scenes. Like, are we on? There's always some sort of an issue streaming through this platform.
Practice. That's why.
Guys, welcome. Happy New Year to everyone. Welcome to The Bald Truth. This is the show that seems to last forever. At least that's how it feels for me.
Happy New Year, everyone.
That was Joe's idea, by the way. I had nothing to do with it.
Thank you. How's it going, Spencer?
Okay, can't complain. Welcome to 2025, another interesting hair loss year. Got off the phone today with a 33-year-old hair transplant surgeon. Already has several years under his belt. Interesting because he's in Europe, that's why.
Wow.
But I do find that, first of all, we need young guys. We need new young guys to be part of what we do, who understand the value and the importance of the IHRS, who understand the value and importance of the social proof and being a part of what we are doing, as opposed to just trying to get involved with companies and services to purely get leads and to just build their online presence by essentially creating content that focuses on the low-hanging fruit and all the happy horseshit that we see, at least coming from the U.S. doctors. And then you see all the low-hanging fruit coming from Europe and obviously all the stuff that we see coming out of Turkey. With that said, the low-hanging fruit works. People are interested in that type of content. People are interested in surgeons, facial plastic surgeons, or hair transplant surgeons, or facial plastic hair transplant surgeons, or board-certified plastic surgeons / hair transplant surgeons, talking about other people's work, describing what's going on with this particular person, usually celebrities. That draws in the eyeballs and, frankly, the suckers.
Yeah. That's the whole point.
I try not to do that. I've been avoiding it throughout my entire career. It's been 4 months since I started to put some effort into Instagram. And what I mean by effort, I mean just posting content that's not part of this broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
And it's getting a lot of attention, which is fantastic. But there's a big segment of my followers, some of them aren't following me anymore, who come in, if I don't provide them with the solutions right away, like these so-called other experts, health influencers, facial plastic surgeons, or whatever, they're upset. They don't understand why I'm not just telling them what they need to do. They think I'm just criticizing the field or criticizing the snake oils that are being sold. They don't see it as snake oils. And they don't understand the value of that education, like kind of knowing what not to do, how to avoid and safely navigate this field, how not to get disfigured and ripped off. That should be hair loss research 101.
Yeah.
But I find it interesting, the level of complaints. I also found it interesting, there was a guy who, when I first started getting more involved, he went to Turkey. And again, there's some great surgeons in Turkey. We work with several to have a hair transplant. And he was very, let's just say, less than generous with his assessment of how I was presenting the reality of hair transplant tourism in this world. And I know, there was a confirmation bias since he had a hair transplant with like incredibly, one of these really straight hairlines that just don't occur in nature. But a good-looking guy still looks good. I think a lot of people, they may think it's a hair transplant, but they don't. In this culture, in today's world, looking like you have a hair transplant seems to be okay in this new normal.
It's like duck lips.
It's like duck lips.
Yeah.
So, but he was pretty aggressive, and I didn't quite understand why. And I thought it was just pure confirmation bias. Come to find out, he's the founder and CEO of some new hair restoration company. I'm not going to say where they provide certain hair restoration, in quotes, services and help find you and connect you with the best hair transplant surgeons in different parts of the world. One part in particular.
Interesting.
It's always those dudes. It's always the guys who are in the business, who are have the most vitriol, the most vicious, and the most combative when you're out there just telling the truth. And doing this for almost 30 years, it never fails. Always in the end, I find out they're somehow involved in the business or they want to get in the business. There was some crazy kid online years ago, this is about 10 years ago, who he went off on me, he went off on you, he went off on the organization, he went off on Spencer Stevenson. All of a sudden, I see him manning a booth at one of these conferences. He's in the industry. That's the way it works. Guys, the phone number is 888-659-3727. But anyway, it was nice to speak to a young guy who, understands the market. He understands the politics. But I still think he's going to get involved with some of the bad players in this field. And while he understands the potential ramifications of that, in the end, it's all about visibility and leads.
He understands shit.
Well,
he understands shit. He doesn't understand anything.
They claim to. And I think it's important if he's listening. I mean, I think it's important, I don't like to, there's a lot when I speak to these young guys, these new guys, you want to warn them about the reality of the industry and who not to get involved with, but you also, at this stage, it's just kind of, for me, it's just kind of like, what's the point of wasting my breath? It doesn't make a difference. I was just feeling him out. I wasn't giving him any specific advice, but I was just like, oh shit, here's another one.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Would he happen to be in Europe proper, or an island off the coast?
No, he's Europe proper.
Okay, all right. Because I was talking to a doctor on an island just off the coast. Not a similar situation, just a couple of texts back and forth, but just wondering if it was the same one. So apparently it wasn't, which is good.
Well, my geography's a little off at this stage of my life, so it's well, I don't think so.
Was it England?
We don't want to talk about anything specific.
Mm-hmm. Because there's only like 3 doctors in England, so we don't want to narrow it down.
Yeah. But
how was your holiday?
My holiday was, same shit. That's all.
Mine was fantastic.
I'm glad.
Finally took a fucking holiday, man. 10
I'm
days.
really glad. I saw all of your pictures. I saw you boasting about your fun times, your excursions, and you're just.
That's right.
The escapism that we all try to find from this desperate world we live in.
I've not had that kind of escapism in over 10 years.
Really?
So, yeah. Yeah. Well over 10 years. So it was a great recharge because I am raring to go. I've got ideas. I'm feeling good about it.
Guys, we'll take your calls in a second, so hold on.
Don't have this cloud over my head about this industry. I was able to think through some things. I've got a nice path forward for 2025.
Oh, that's great.
Feeling good about it.
I was in Vegas for a couple of days, and let me tell you, the animals there, it was unbelievable. Unbelievable. Now, of course, I had a nice time, and I don't tell anybody what I do. At this point, I tell them I sell insurance. If you tell somebody you sell insurance, you're in an insurance game, they have no question. They don't want to ask you anything. So they think you're going to try to sell them insurance. So that's my new thing. I'm an insurance salesman.
Or a Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah, well,
Same reaction. Same reaction.
Guys, the phone number is 888-659-3727. But yeah, man, I was at a couple of places, but I stayed at the Wynn, and it was packed and crazy, and but it was fun. Let's take a phone call.
Well, good.
Hey, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Andrew from Atlanta, Georgia.
Andrew, man, you got to
What's up, Andrew?
speaking to your phone, or maybe get off speaker.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me a little better now? I'm in AirPods. I can get them if necessary.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny. We're all stuck using AirPods, and they suck.
Okay. Let me ditch them.
All right.
All right. I have my phone in my head like everyone did 15 years ago.
Perfect.
How's it
Listen, don't keep
right.
it to your head too long. We don't want to give you any tumors just from calling the show, but I think you'll be all right.
Or exacerbate.
But thank you for your sacrifice.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the call. I am 31 years old, and I think I'm ready to get back on the treatment saddle, so to speak. And really wanted to get your thoughts on Dutasteride before I make any decisions in terms of my best path forward. I've never really had like a specialist answer this question super clearly, in my opinion, but it's my understanding that Dutasteride blocks type 1 and type 2 of DHT.
That's correct, sir.
And do you often in your field see men who continue to lose their hair after being on finasteride for a significant amount of time, but all of a sudden they try Dutasteride and they realize, I guess, that type 1 was the culprit of their hair loss? And if the answer is yes, that makes me want to entertain oral Dutasteride.
Well, before we answer the question, all that stuff is essentially, we see people on finasteride for long periods of time, and they continue to lose ground. I've also known people on Dutasteride who continue to lose ground.
That's what I thought the question was.
But you said you're going to be jumping back on the treatment bandwagon. Were you on treatment for a while and you stopped treatment?
I was, and I knew I was inheriting some risk with that, but if my timeline is correct, I think I was diagnosed officially in like summer of 2017 and started oral finasteride brand name, obviously for, I want to say 2 years, 1 milligram a day. And I don't know, maybe my expectations were maybe not what they should have been, but in my view, I continued to lose ground and then went to different specialists, and they were a huge proponent of topical finasteride with, topical minoxidil in that solution. And they had me on a really, really high dose. I mean, it was topical, so I'm not like super scared of whatever implications that may have had on my health. I don't never really had side effects to speak of, but regardless, that's neither here nor there now. And I was probably on that for close to 2 years and same situation, right? And my life, and at this point in my life, I was moving into my late 20s and we're coming out of the pandemic. I had a huge career change. I was getting married. My band started getting really busy. So that's the other thing that I do is like, so I had all these things on my plate. And I was like, at a certain point, I kind of want to see the chips fall where they may, so to speak, because I'm one of those neurotic hair loss patients, right? Like constantly looking in the mirror at every little follicle. Yeah. And it was just better for me and my mental health to be like, I'm going to table this later. And in a way, to some degree, I'm kind of glad that I did, because being 31, I mean, I'm not terribly unhappy with where I'm at, but I know it's never going to get better unless I do something about it. So my expectations are fairly realistic, but before I make any decisions, I don't want to like write Dutasteride off if that's maybe what I needed all along, if that makes sense.
Well, what kind of finasteride were you on? Were you on a generic oral finasteride?
No, brand name Propecia. No, a brand name, so I was paying for the most expensive one.
So, all right, well, okay, so you're on brand name, and you continue to lose ground, or you just didn't see an improvement?
In my view, again, it's been so long, but if I was losing ground just at a like fairly steady, like marginal rate, you know, definitely no regrowth, but regrowth was never really my expectation. I was just like, oh, I'm seeing degradation in the front still. Maybe there's something like this is time to get a second opinion. And that's when I got on the topical one that didn't do anything differently anyway. And so, yeah, that's when I took a break because I'm like, maybe I'm just not the best responder to finasteride.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you know, the thing about finasteride is, and I'll let Joe, you know, give his 2 cents. The thing about finasteride is even there are instances where as long as you're not having any adverse effects, I've known guys it's taken 15 months or more before they realize that it may have been of benefit to them. Sometimes up to 2 years. They think they're continuing to progress, or, you know, maybe they think their shedding has slowed down a little bit, but they didn't get any real regrowth. Or maybe, you know, they're not 100% sure if they're worse or not, but because there's no, you know, just a glaring sign that this treatment was working for them, they stop using it. So
Right. And if memory serves, like I was outside of that window. Like it had been over 15 months. And I was that crazy person taking photos every day with consistent lighting while I was trying to, you know, account for all the variables as best that I could.
Forget about the photos. What about just in person, in the mirror every day when you were styling your hair? Did you notice you were continuing to shed a lot of hair, or it was just...
It had always been about the same rate, even prior to treatment. You know, I was never the guy that saw huge clumps.
Okay.
Some days, especially if I wasn't washing my hair, I would see more strands than others. And that's still the case today, I would argue. So yeah, I wasn't seeing a huge benefit. And one of my, I think maybe my biggest mistake early on is I saw a dermatologist, and thankfully they were, you know, compliant in terms of being able to prescribe me the brand name.
Mm-hmm.
But I finally saw a specialist, and they're like, okay, you look good, but I do see problem areas in the front still, and these areas are concerning, so I'll put you on topical. And again, maybe on that for about 2 years and didn't do anything. So now I'm at the point where, and maybe this is like foolish thinking, I'm not scared to get back on brand name Propecia, even if let's just say it wasn't doing anything. I'm also of the opinion it's not hurting anything either. But I don't know. Maybe that's wrong way to look at it.
It's not the wrong way to look at it. I mean, I think it's reasonable if you're not having any adverse effects that you're not concerned about taking the medication. Now, I have no idea what it's done to me. No idea. I've been on the drug for almost 30 years. I think I'm okay. Who knows?
Right.
Who knows what it, you know, it's like anything else. I mean, people eat sugar their entire life, or people live their lives with extremely low vitamin D levels, you know, and they don't even realize
and for
that.
all of those reasons, I've never been scared of the side effects of finasteride, at least.
Yeah.
Dutasteride concerns me a little bit more. It's my understanding that it blocks a DHT that is actually found in the brain. Now, I have no idea if that's true. I'm not some big city scientist, but apparently you're taking on a little bit greater of a risk with Dutasteride. And I have no idea about like what the dosage should be. Every doctor is going to have a different opinion on that, provided they're even willing to prescribe it to you, in the U.S. So I don't know. I don't know the best way forward as far as what DHT blocker I should be on at, this stage of my life. I just turned 31.
Well, here's the thing. It sounds like you want to treat your hair loss still. You don't want to give up.
Of course.
Okay.
No.
So, yeah. So listen, Dutasteride works. There's no doubt about it. And I'm not a physician. We cannot give you any medical advice on the show. But there is a concern. If you do have adverse side effects, the half-life is much longer, so it's going to take longer for you to recover from those side effects if you do have side effects. Chances of you having side effects is relatively low, even with Dutasteride. There is some talk about, the whole passing the blood-brain barrier and just the DHT in the brain thing, which I've read before, but I haven't seen anything that would concern me personally. However, once you get online and read the chatter, all of it's scary.
Right.
if you have a physician who's willing to prescribe it and you're willing to take it, and you think that it's if you're willing to continue treatment and you don't think that finasteride helped you at all, that's really the next step. Or you could consider talking to your doctor about upping your dosage of oral finasteride, seeing if that helps in any way. Joe?
Gotcha. I think
Yeah,
that's really fair. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead and finish your response to Spencer.
Well, it was just sort of in response to like the chatter. I think what stresses me out about all of it, right, is not even like the discrepancies of what you'll see in a forum, but even with doctors that are part of your organization. And I think they have great reasons for saying what they do, but you have some doctors who will say, yeah, like I tell my patients, to pop Dutasteride twice a week because the half-life is longer. And,
Right.
and yeah, that's what you should do. And then others say, I can prescribe it to you, but your chances of having sides are 1 in 100, whereas in my view, finasteride, it was 1 in 1,000. So you have to make that decision for yourself. And then others will say, I don't use Dutasteride in my practice at all.
Yeah.
Probably because they don't want to get sued, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. They don't want to deal with any, even though, they could have you sign 1 million documents and, they probably wouldn't be liable for it. I mean, they're just being prescribed off-label. And even though you're legally allowed to prescribe any medication that's FDA approved off-label in this country, I mean, for a while you weren't, as you know, during the pandemic for whatever reasons. But, in most cases you are. It really is the practice of medicine is up to the physician themselves. And it also depends on who's coming back to them in their practice. Did one particular physician you speak with have patients who may have had more adverse side effects from Dutasteride than 10 other doctors you've spoken with? That's possible. Or was there one case in their practice that was pretty profound that scared the shit out of them? That's possible. All these things exist. That's the thing, you have to do your due diligence and feel as comfortable as possible. We can't tell you what to do. I do know a lot of guys on Dutasteride. I know Spencer Stevenson's on Dutasteride for a long time. Joe was on it for a while. He did get a little feminine for a short period of time, though, at that point.
I just started looking better.
Yeah. But
so let me
go
ask
ahead,
you. I got 2 basic questions. First, what is your hair loss condition? Like, how much hair loss are you dealing with?
It's hard to say. Like, I don't know if I fall in, or maybe anybody really falls in like a perfect cookie cutter like Norwood category. I guess maybe a 1.5 or a 2 at this point.
That's what I thought.
I'm more like diffuse than anything, right? And I've started to notice other areas that weren't initial problem areas, like toward my crown, but it's still, like, I'm 31 and no one's ever really made a comment, honestly, so I consider myself really lucky. But objectively, on the side that I've been concerned about since I was 22 or 23, like, I promise this isn't just my neurosis. Like, I'm like, oh, okay, this is actual, like loss of hair. This is degradation. And my main goal is just to try to stop it and extend my runway as long as possible. So it's definitely.
So when you say diffuse,
but I've also been off of treatment for like 3 years.
No, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But when you say diffuse, you mean diffused in the hairline or diffused throughout the top of your scalp?
More so in the hairline and around my right temple at this point. Like, again, lighting is the great leveler for me. Like, certain lighting, like right now I'm walking outside at night. You probably could not tell. But after all the different lighting I've experimented with over the years and seeing it in photos myself, like especially high quality photos now, I can definitely tell. So yeah, it's more so in the hairline, a little bit of regression in the front, and then loss of density in a particular area by a pretty significant margin, in my view, at least in terms of what it was.
Have your friends started to call you Baldy at all?
No.
Okay.
No.
Good.
Okay.
All right.
And
that's what happened to me.
And the effects of getting off of the oral and then switching to topical and then getting off of topical, what kind of acceleration of hair loss did you see?
None. Same rate as always since I was 22, 23.
So based on everything you're talking about with Spencer and what you just told me, I think moving over to Dutasteride, I wouldn't waste my time.
Okay.
Because your degree of loss is minimal based on what you're telling me. sight unseen, haven't seen you. You're more I imagine you're pretty hyper aware of your loss simply because of what you're talking about before, where you're taking a lot of photos every day, or at least some photos every day just to track it. I get it, but because you've not had taking finasteride basically has been like a sugar pill for you. You've not had any sort of reaction, pro or con, because of it, or from stopping it. So what that tells me is maybe sticking on it was preventing a really slow progression from continuing, and it's such a mild progression of loss that you wouldn't even notice it for 5 years. So I would say get back on Propecia if it's of concern for you. I wouldn't go into the realm of Dutasteride because it is still, like, it's been around for 20 years now, for crying out loud, but it's still kind of murky as far as how some people react to it. You mentioned the relationship with brain chemistry. There is a relationship. There's also some other relationships. I'm not going to cite anything, but I do know of cases where, with finasteride, a lot of people are concerned about sperm count. Finasteride doesn't affect sperm count. It affects sperm mobility with semen volume. Dutasteride actually could interfere with or affect sperm counts. Big difference, right? So
Gotcha.
You're young. You got most of your hair. Based on everything you're telling me, if you do anything at all, get back on Propecia and stay the course. Because it doesn't sound it doesn't sound like you're in a position where Dutasteride is going to make a difference one way or the other.
Well, to address the reproductive side just really briefly, because that was one of my questions. From what I can tell in the minimal literature that I've read, even if I was trying to conceive, finasteride is not really that scary. I mean, maybe the mobility thing, sure, but like there are some people who have conceived and had children on Propecia fine, and they haven't had to stop. Now, I'm not saying to recommend that or whatever, but it does happen. But if I'm understanding you correctly, Dutasteride actually could make conceiving a problem.
Well, I'll say this. I know of one case, directly speaking with a patient, that said, and he was dealing with sperm count tests.
Is that the guy who had the kid with the flipper arm?
I think so. Yeah,
okay.
I think so.
That's a joke.
I don't recall.
Kind of sad.
Yes. This was quite a while ago, so I don't remember the details. But what I do remember is that he said that after he started taking Dutasteride, he did have a count test performed, and it crashed to 0. And then a year later, after he got off of it, it was still at 0. It completely destroyed his count. So could it be from something else? Absolutely. Was it from Dutasteride? Nothing tells me it's an absolute. So I'm just throwing that out there just for your consideration. Finasteride, completely different issue. Strictly
Gotcha.
Mobility.
And just I mean, obviously, I always tell people when they ask me, you don't want to be the anomaly who has the kid while taking finasteride, and something goes wrong and you not knowing that, and while it probably wasn't finasteride, having that in the back of your mind. But with that said, I know, at least 5 people who had children, 1 twins, and, obviously no problems with the male kids. And there's not been one case reported, at least here in the U.S. or anywhere in the world that I'm aware of. But you don't want that in the back of your mind. So
that's fair.
I would say that if you are in a position where you're considering having kids, if you're taking finasteride, it's not going to kill you to get off it for a month or 2 months, and try to make sure that you conceive during that time, which I know is not easy, but I always tell people to get off of it.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, the only other maybe relevant detail, Joe, before I completely put Dutasteride on the back burner for now, is I did sort of feel like I don't even know how to describe it. It was almost like I don't think it was like an effluvium necessarily, but there was kind of a turning point with the front of my hairline where I started noticing things that were a little less debatable from like a photo, mirror, lighting, all the above perspective. After about a year, I had been off of Propecia completely. And that was probably early 2023, you know, where I saw more of like, I don't know if you could call them true blue, like miniaturized hairs, but definitely shorter hairs that were not growing as fast, right? And I'm like, okay, now I'm seeing... Region? Yeah, and in the front of my hairline as well. So, and it almost like, again, it wasn't overnight, but it might as like well have been as far as I'm concerned. Like there was like, it was probably in the spring of 23 where I'm like, okay, now I'm really, you know, noticing in ways I didn't in my mid 20s. So that's why I'm like, that's what makes Dutasteride attractive versus, but then like, I don't know, but I've been off Propecia a year. Did that have something to do with where I ended up? I just don't know.
Well, if it took you a year to notice it, then probably not. Because if you're going through some sort of effluvium from dropping the medication, you usually start to see that much sooner than 1 year. We're talking just a matter of maybe a month or two, maybe 3, before you really start to see any sort of shedding that is due specifically and directly because of a cessation of either dutasteride or finasteride. And with minoxidil, I think it's maybe sooner. But it's all within that time frame of, say, 1 to 3, maybe 4 months, but definitely not a year. I've never heard of that. So I think that may be a turning point in your own genetics where it may be caught up and you were finally noticing it. So, yeah, I mean, again, Propecia, would it have happened if you stuck with it? No one can say. But I think that better safe than sorry is the way to move forward on this. Get back on Propecia or ProScar if you want to save some money and be able to cut up into quarters. Not going to the generic, sticking with ProScar.
Fair enough.
And ride that train, man. Like,
I appreciate it.
Monitor. Not quite as don't be as excessive as daily photographs. Maybe once a month, because I think that'll give you a better idea of the progression. Because you'll see any sort of differences much more clearly with that time gap.
Fair enough. Well, I mean, like all decisions, I think it's just good for my own mental health to sleep on them for a few days. And I don't mean to discredit your perspective. I mean, it's vastly more informed than mine. And
I get discredited all the time. In my life, I'm used to it.
Well, again, I'm not. Again, I'm a king of options. I like to have everything out on the table in front of me. I'll just ask this: in the event that I do get on Dutasteride at some point in my life, whether that's in a few months or a few years, are you as I don't know how to say it, like maybe as doctrinal or whatever about the brand as you are Propecia? Because I totally get it. I want to use brand name Propecia, but Avidart, I think it's a lot harder to get.
It is a lot harder to get.
Dutasteride.
If you can, do it. But therein lies the additional risk factor. I don't know if it's really a risk factor, but the additional factor that can
it's a question mark on whether or not
more questions.
Yeah, the drug's going to work or not, or if it's going to have more adverse effects. Listen,
I just didn't know if you saw guys who like they were on generic Dutasteride and all of a sudden they got on Avidart and they're like, oh, my problems are solved. If that's common, like I don't know what I don't know is basically what I'm saying.
I've never seen it with Dutasteride, but I've seen it with finasteride for sure.
Yeah, I can't say it's common, but the fact of the matter is it does happen. Not just with finasteride and Dutasteride, but other medications. You know, there's a whole 60 Minutes episode dedicated to this exact subject when it came to generics being given out in the hospital for people that have much more serious conditions than hair loss, and it wasn't pretty. So in any situation, if you can take the name brand versus the quote unquote generic equivalent, then do so.
Fair. Okay, well that's good to know. I think the one thing I'm certain, I might not have all the answers as far as my decision goes with the DHT blocker, but unless you disagree, the other thing I'll add to the regimen is oral minoxidil. I was, like I said, I was on that as well. I tried 10%. For why I tried that is
actually no. You said you were on topical minoxidil. I didn't hear
right.
You say
so
oral.
that was infused in that topical.
Now you said you're in Georgia.
Yeah.
Who'd you get the drugs from?
Dr. Cole a couple years ago. And then after I revisited him, he was like, we'll bump it over 10%. Again, I didn't see any real improvement with that, but I did have a meeting with Dr. Cooley in North Carolina online, and he was like, hey, I see way more consistent results with oral minoxidil. And so I was like, okay, well, that is something worth considering. So again, I just wanted to run that by you both.
Well, that's different. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, look, all these drugs have the potential for adverse effects, but I know there's plenty of people out there now, because it's being prescribed much more readily than it was. I mean, this is something that I've known about for my entire career. There have been doctors kind of prescribing it at slightly higher dosages, but forever. And the results were always positive, but there was a greater chance of side effects. And then during the Global Hair Loss Summit, when Sergio Bagno spoke about, his low-dose oral minoxidil study in his practice, everyone kind of jumped on it. Then the New York Times jumped on it. Now everyone's doing it. There seems to be a lot of really great response. But just remember, it's a growth stimulator. Taking it is not what's going to keep your hair, the genetics and the hormones at bay. So the fact that you're considering doing both, it may be the 1-2 punch that you need.
Sure.
Using oral minoxidil, I think it can keep your hair in an anagen phase for 2, 3, 4 cycles. That could be, 15 years. So it could have a very positive impact if you are dealing with the hormonal factors as well. So since you're willing to take both, at least mentally, you're in a good position. So it may be a situation where you can take finasteride and talk to Dr. Cooley or whoever you're talking to about this. You can take finasteride again and add your oral minoxidil. That may do the trick for you. I know you want to get on Dutasteride, brother. I know you want to. And I'm not telling you not to. I'm not a doctor. That's your choice. But less is always more. You haven't tried oral minoxidil with finasteride yet.
That's 100% the thing, right? Like, that's a very, very good point. That's why I'm not married to Dutasteride either. I mean, there's a lot of things to consider with Dutasteride. I mean, it's murkier, like you said. If I get brand name, it's way more expensive. It just, I don't know. I don't love the prospect of getting on that. I just didn't know if, like, there are a significant portion of men who suffer from that other type that it blocks that see just these amazing results. And again, I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah, but you're also bringing something brand new into the equation that you didn't bring to us before. The fact that you're willing to take oral minoxidil.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair. I just didn't even see. A lot of doctors back then didn't even they were so married to their compounding pharmacy and their solution and their treatment that a lot of doctors back then that I was talking to, they didn't even want to entertain it.
Well, they're married to it because they're able to make a bit better.
They're making a
dollar out of it.
Right. Totally understood. But I just, before I got on this oral minoxidil, I mainly just wanted to see if you both thought that, like, from an efficacy perspective,
What year did John Cole prescribe you his compound?
God, this was maybe 2019, 2020, maybe. Again, like, it's like, I almost feel like anything like pandemic wise is kind of a blur. I used to have the timeline in my brain like down pat, but it's just, I've been dealing with this for so long. I don't remember exactly. It was definitely before that episode. I'll say that.
I think that if he would have showed up to the Global Hair Loss Summit, he would have seen Sergio's talk, and he may have prescribed you oral minoxidil. So,
conversation for another day, but I'm sure you're right.
Yeah.
But
I do think that changes the equation for you. And I think that it is possible that finasteride was doing something for you that you didn't realize and that you weren't really able to assess. And adding a vasodilator, a growth stimulator to the mix could put you in a completely different category. I mean, I've seen guys who've just catapulted their hair growth.
Right. And I took one of those, like, tricho tests as well during this time period, and I think the results came back with me having, like, a depressed level of the enzyme that's required for minoxidil to really do the trick, which is why maybe the topical minoxidil wasn't really doing it for me. But I've heard the oral kind of bypasses that mechanism.
It bypasses it completely. That's why it works for just about 100% of the people that use it, compared to 40% of people on topical.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's.
And I'm not saying it works
really
on 100%, but it's close to 100%. You know, I mean, most
is,
people
very
will have some benefit as far as they'll see some growth. It may not be on their head, but it'll be somewhere on their body. So it works. But a lot of people will see tremendous success. And when I say tremendous, I mean visible hair growth using oral minoxidil if they're good responders. And more people are good responders to oral again. I'm backtracking because I don't want anyone to think that, Kobren said it works in 100% of the people. That's not the case. But it's more efficacious than topical.
Fair enough.
Right.
Well, okay. I think that's the path forward. Is there anything I should be aware of as some of these auxiliary treatments? Maybe that's not the right word.
Ancillary treatments?
Yeah. Like everyone's got their thing. I've noticed, and again, it's coming from really, really prestigious, like great doctors. But some I've talked to are really into
I'll tell you
exosomes.
I'll tell you what.
Others are in.
Yeah, go ahead. This is the group that you're probably. So you have exosomes. Now there's people who are talking about actual umbilical stem cells. You have the TED system. You have a new fractional laser that's being promoted. And what happens is physicians are sold these products and these devices, and there's some clinical evidence that they may be helpful, but they are also sold on the idea that, wait a second, I could sell these devices or these biologics at, a decent markup. There's really good margins for us, and we can also have patients coming back. So that's why they invest in this equipment. And that's also why, I'm not saying that exosomes don't work, but you have to know where they're coming from. They're not going to work for everybody. If you're going to have any type of exosomes or, in quotes, stem cell therapy, I would certainly, consider only an IHRS surgeon. But at this point, I can't give anything like the full thumbs up. I've seen it. I've known it to work for some people. But who knows? If there's a placebo effect, who knows if it was just the PRP that actually made it, the people have positive results. Who knows if it was the exosomes? I don't know. I really don't know. We accept these physicians into the organization for their surgical skill. That's it.
Gotcha.
Is someone trying to fight with you?
Yeah, I think someone's yelling at their dog.
Oh.
So I'm walking the other way.
Okay. Yeah.
So
I mean, what were you offered? What were you offered specifically?
Well, depending on the doctor, I was at first it was exosomes, and it was from someone who was a member of the organization. But
Right.
I saw a reel from yours recently saying like, "Hey, there's potential health risk with this," and I'm like, "What might those be?" If I ever go down that path.
I mean,
what am I gonna
you have to know where the batches are come from. You have to know where they're manufactured. I mean, if it's a good source and you trust the physician and the batch is already tested in his office, I wouldn't want to be the first. I wouldn't want to be the first person that he opened a fresh batch, a fresh box, and I wouldn't want to be the first person injected with that stuff. That's all I'm saying.
What are the potential side effects that you've seen?
Bacterial infections, viral infections. I mean, the product can be contaminated. It's a biological product.
But nothing as far as like, I don't know, something that's like lethal or could kill you in the long term.
Bacterial infection like MRSA or whatever. And that could kill you. There have been some deaths with stem cells. But not in the hair world. This was like in Texas. You can look it up. You can see what's going on. That's why kind of the FDA really cracked down. I'm not saying the FDA is perfect. So you just have to know where it's coming from. Now, if they're in the IHRS, I could just about guarantee that they're sourcing it from a legit source. They're not getting it from, I don't know, China or wherever, through Alibaba or wherever these people are getting their products from. So that's the good news. And they're going to be relatively, I would say that 99.9% of the docs in the group are going to be completely forthright. They're going to let you see all of the, the product literature, where it's being manufactured, the vial itself. They'll let you know whether or not they use that batch in office or not. And you can also tell them that you want to wait until, it's used on somebody else.
Fair enough.
They'll understand.
Don't be a guinea pig.
Gotcha.
Yeah, don't be a guinea pig.
and
never use a fresh batch. I mean, you want your own vial, but I'm talking about from the lot that they get sent to them.
And see, you multiply like these variables and these concerns over like 5 other treatments. It's hard for me to know what's what. Like same thing with RU51. I don't even know what the name of that is, but I know you know what I'm talking about. I don't know what that is.
RU58841. Most people don't really know what it is, and you don't even know if you're getting the real deal. This was a topical anti-androgen that was being tested back in the late 90s. I wrote about it in The Bald Truth. And it was initially Rousseau Pharmaceuticals out of France, and then another pharmaceutical company picked it up. It was never put on the market for androgenetic alopecia. And then all of a sudden, the gray market picked it up, and now you're seeing it somehow being sold in concoctions on Amazon. I don't know how that's even possible.
That is weird. But it's weird because, or funny because like just today on a Facebook group about hair transplants and hair loss, someone was asking for the best place to get RU in Thailand. I'm like, Jesus, it's like, why are you even asking this question? What do you mean the best place to get it in Thailand? What's the best place anywhere? It never entered the market as a product, and it never made it past phase 2 clinical trials, and those results were never even published. It only got past phase 1 for safety, and that's it. But since then, it's like, who's making this? You want to talk about the issue with generics. Let's talk about the issue with unknown companies making a product that was never released in the first place.
Essentially, all they have is a blueprint on how to make this compound. And then these compounding companies, pharmacies or whatever, they're making these products, combining them, compounding with other, products to make it a easy to use topical solution. Before, you actually used to have to just get the powder, I think, and like basically make it in your bathtub. So look, you're going to see. I've never known I've been doing this for 30 years. I've never known a single person who's come out. You won't find them on Reddit or on the forums or anywhere that said, you know what, I've been using RU58841 for 30 years. And I'm still on it. It doesn't exist. It's mostly young kids talking about it. They may feel like they've got some sort of a spike. They're also taking other agents and compounds simultaneously. And they really have no idea. Now, I know that Derek from More Plates, More Dates talks about it or has talked about it in the past and kind of still brings it up to some point. And I have to tell you, I admire that guy on many levels. He's able to take the information that's available to everybody, but, really distill it down, present it in a very lucid way. He also experiments on himself, and he's had really great success using certain compounds while he was taking gear. And I've seen his hair go from really looking thin to, it looks really good now. So I think a lot of kids listen to him, but he's smart. So I don't know if he's still using topical RU58841, but I know that he talked about it for a while, and then it kind of got a resurgence online after he started to talk about it. To my recollection.
Yeah.
That's kind of a long way of saying, don't waste your time, brother. You could do it, but...
Well, the thing is, I do listen to those influencers or whatever, but I've heard it come out of doctors' mouths who are highly respected, and I'm just like, what if I search for 5 minutes online, everything that you just described pops up? So why are you pushing it? You know what I mean? And I don't know where they're going. So it just, the whole thing concerns me.
Look, I could tell you this again. I've been in this industry for a long time, and I started out, full on consumer advocate, exposing the reality of this field. There were only 11 doctors doing follicular unit transplantation back then, and I thought it would be in the best interest of patients to list these doctors in my book. That evolved into the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons. My main concern was ensuring that people had a fighting chance when it came to surgery. But I also knew that the hair loss space, as most of the cosmetic surgery space, there's a lot of question marks. And even the guys with the best hands, with the best staff, who do the best surgery, they need to make $1. So you have to kind of think to yourself, I mean, if I were to look at every physician and go into their practice and see what they were selling, whether it's laser helmets or this or that, and kind of make a judgment on whether or not they should be a part of what we do and give people a fighting chance to have good surgery, and make a judgment on their ethics based on selling, I don't know, Nutrafol or some shit, I mean, we wouldn't be able to provide people with any real information on how to get, at least have a fighting chance to have good surgery. So
Sure.
I don't even know what to say sometimes. It's almost like sometimes I see doctors selling shit. I'm just like, Jesus, I know it's tough out there, but why? What are you doing? Stick to what you know. And they're...
No, I appreciate that perspective. That kind of colors it a little bit for me before going down those paths.
Look, everyone asks us about Nutrafol. I got to say, the reason why physicians are promoting this particular product is that it has the highest margins out of all the products out there. You know, I think there are products that may be better sourced. You know, if you're going to go for a natural DHT blocker, I wrote about this 30 years ago, and I was a big believer when doctors... I had a doctor who was going to write the foreword for my first book. He read the chapter on natural DHT, lowering your DHT naturally, and he said he can't put his name on the book now because this is nonsense. Well, guess what? He's selling, or I'm not going to say he, but, you know, practices that he's involved in are selling these products now.
Sure, yeah.
You know? So, anyway, that's a lot. I'm kind of, I'm venting a little bit, but all I can tell you is you're going to hear a lot of things from some of the most well-known physicians in the field, and some guys who do really good work and help a lot of people. But you have to understand a little part of what's going on is business.
Mm-hmm.
So,
do you think that's contributed to the resurgence of like the topical solution? Because there does seem to be this like two sides of the argument, which there's one side, there's a lot of respected doctors will say your serum or the DHT in your blood levels actually matters, and that's why taking the oral route is the best. And then the others will say, no, you want to focus the treatment where it's actually happening on the scalp. So that's why topical is better. I'm a little bit skeptical of that argument because, again, are they making a ton of money off the compound solution?
Yes. Yes. They are.
Yeah,
they are
exactly.
there. And also, there's a market for. There's a lot of guys who are just shit scared to take oral medication. So this is an option that works. I mean, it does work, but it's not as effective as taking it systemically. That's just the reality.
That's the whole reason why topicals were created in the first place with regards to topical finasteride, which was the first topical aside from minoxidil, is strictly because of the fear of side effects by patients. Doctors were seeing this increasing in the mid-2000s of patients saying, I'm afraid of side effects or I had side effects from oral finasteride, and they started to see an opportunity. That's the only reason we have it. There's no other reason. It's not because it's better. It's not because it was thought of to be better. It's in direct relation or response, rather, to the fear of side effects of oral medication. Full stop.
Gotcha.
There's no other reason.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's, I guess I've just always kind of assumed that, you know, when you lower those side effects, you're lowering the efficacy risk as well. Like
that makes sense.
You can't have your cake and eat it too, but I don't know.
No, you do know. I mean, that's common sense. But there are companies out there that are making claims that there's certain very specific, I don't know what they're called, you know, vehicles or holding solutions or whatever, and somehow it's able to like kind of drip feed the medication into your scalp. I mean, all kinds of happy horse shit. All I can tell you is topicals can work. Topical finasteride has been shown to work. Topical dutasteride has been shown to work. But if you want the most bang for your buck, you got to take the pill. But that's the second choice. If you really want to treat your hair loss, I've known people, and there are stats out there, that these topicals can help. And for some people, they do a tremendous job. That's just the way it is. But you got to go for the pill first if you really want to ensure that you're affecting it hormonally. That's how I feel about it. I'm sure a lot of doctors you speak to, like you just said, will tell you the same thing. You know. So, all right, brother. Well, listen, I don't know how tough your decision is at this point. I mean, I think adding into the equation that you're concerned that you're willing to take oral minoxidil kind of changes the whole thing. We wasted about an hour and a half talking about Dutasteride. I'm just kidding.
No, I
was gonna say,
appreciate you
this is a long
both.
ass
Like,
call.
perspective is really, really important. Before I make that appointment to get refills on prescriptions and everything, is there any brain concern for minoxidil? I that just entered my brain right now. Again, I don't know much about that drug. I don't know anything about the
No.
brands, dosages, concerns. But can I take whatever they give me?
It's all generic.
It's all generic now,
Okay.
so I mean, it's kind of you just gotta kind of cross your fingers and hope for the best.
Fair enough. Well, I appreciate you both.
All right,
very
brother. Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
888-659-3727
Wow.
is the toll-free number.
That was a long ass call.
You know what? He had a lot of questions, and
He did, yeah, and I'm glad we answered it.
Yeah, and after a long weekend, I have a tendency to ramble myself, so it's not his fault. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Oh, shit. Did I win?
You won.
You won.
Oh, yeah. This is Adam from Wisconsin.
Adam from where?
Adam from where?
Wisconsin.
Adam from Wisconsin.
Oh, Wisconsin.
What's going on, man?
How's it going, man?
Long time.
What's up? A long time. Oh, you recognize me.
Of course. I mean, I can't hear you very well. Can you speak into your phone?
Oh, I'm speaking into an earbud.
Try to maybe
This is damn earbuds again.
put your phone to your head for a while.
Yeah. How's that?
I think it's better.
Testing.
Yeah. So what's up, man? What's going on?
Good. I just started there. I just wanted to touch up on having children with the Dutasteride.
Okay.
You guys were just talking about that.
Mhm.
And I take it, and I've been taking 0.5 milligrams every day for 3 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think Spencer, you mentioned one guy who possibly had 0 sperm count on Dutasteride. and
Joe mentioned that.
You weren't sure. Sorry?
Joe mentioned that.
I mentioned that.
So, oh, yeah. And we don't know if it was because of Dutasteride or not, but there is a possibility. But my also other question was just concern over the development of the child, if it was like a Dutasteride baby. And I plan on being off of Dutasteride whenever that time comes.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned for finasteride, it was probably take off 2-3 months before you try. I was wondering what that would be for Dutasteride. If for someone like me who's been taking it daily for
Dutasteride has a long
2 years
half-life,
now.
brother. I mean, it could stay in your body for, what's the half-life on Dutasteride? Can you check that out, Joe?
I forgot.
I would ask Jamie, but he doesn't work for me.
the Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't feel like typing.
Because Dutasteride is extensively metabolized and has a half-life of approximately 5 weeks at a steady state, caution should be used in administration, blah, blah, blah.
So you're talking about 10
5
weeks, 10 weeks before it gets out of your body. It's half-life is 5 weeks.
Oh, 10 weeks. Okay, so about like the same time as finasteride?
Well, you can have to talk to your doctor about that, but it has 10 weeks. It's up to half its potency for up to 5 weeks.
Okay, so let's say I took off for 5-6 months. Do you think I would be in the clear?
You can get checked out.
We're not doctors, but most likely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd
like
be checking
test
my. Yeah, I'd go have some blood work done.
Yeah.
You got a
I didn't even
girlfriend?
think of
You plan on impregnating somebody?
Yeah, I do actually.
Okay.
She's awesome.
That's great, man.
And,
How's your hair?
Good for you.
It's I could confidently say now. I mean, I still remember the first time I called you guys. I was a wreck, man. I was a mess. I was depressed, you know, on the booze every single day. The first time
Like
I called
me.
you guys
Okay.
was, yeah, the first time I was, you know, still young. I'm still young, but younger. And it was the summer of 2020. I still remember because it was COVID.
Jesus.
And
The fact that
yeah,
I'm still
and then,
doing this is like, where's the noose, Joe? Where is the noose?
no, we need you.
It's in my bottle, my friend. It's in my bottle.
No, we love you.
Well, thank
But
you.
yeah, I don't really I guess I think about it a lot less now. It's been
That's good.
4.5 years now since
Good for
I
you.
noticed this. And yeah, I just take the pill. I haven't regained anything. I've kind of just stopped it, I believe, or maybe just slowed it down like incredibly slower.
I think that's that's one of the biggest issues with hair loss or androgenetic alopecia, male and female pattern hair loss. It's not necessarily how you look today. It's the fear of what's going to happen in the next, how your looks going to decline and what your hair is going to look like a year from now. And just the fact, and I always tell people this, and I ask them this question all the time. They're talking about getting hair transplants and, they're young. And I ask them, if you were able to stop your hair loss, keep what you have right now for another 10 years, would you be happy? And a lot of guys will say yes. And that's the miracle of these drugs, is that is now a possibility.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I remember you asked me that. You actually asked me that
Yeah.
the first time I called 4.5 years ago, and
Yeah.
I said,
It's part of my repertoire, man.
I said, yeah, like where I'm at right now, yeah, I'd be fine. I use some Topic,
Yeah.
to kind of like hide it up. And then even if I'm going out in a hat, my problem is that I'll still put on Topic.
Just in case somebody knocks your hat off.
Exactly. You don't want to take that gamble.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, how old are you
yeah.
now? You got to be, what, 30?
No, I'm 27.
27. Wow. Okay. So you were
Wow.
you were really young. Yeah. I mean, I remember
Almost
you
27.
sound like a different person, actually.
You said that last time I called, which was, I think it was like 8 months ago or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You definitely sound like
Yeah.
you got your shit together. You're a lot more confident. That's great.
Yeah, everything's going good. I'm totally off of booze. I'm totally off of pot. I just kind of work full time now and just kind of, I moved back home too. I was kind of like a mess when I was living alone. If I'm going to be honest, I moved back home.
We all go through our trials, my friend. We all go through our trials. The point is, you got through it. You found a good woman. You're happier. You sound fantastic.
Thank you.
I would encourage you back to the birthing issue. I would encourage you or anyone to get blood work before you actually decide to pull that trigger. But both parties, because you want to make sure you've got a solid baseline to work with when you're trying to make another human, right? So get your blood work done. If there's anything that's low or high, get that dealt with. Look for the presence of anything unusual, and just deal with it and move forward. Deal with what's important. Minimum 6 months, I think, being off of Dutasteride. I don't think it would be a bad idea to get tested now. 6 months before you stop taking. Like if you plan this out to the month. So both before and after cessation of use of Dutasteride. Find out where you are before and after.
Oh, so okay. So probably, I did get it checked before. It was years ago, and it was really low. And I did, this is when I was watching the More Plates, More Dates guy. And I got like a more expensive version, actually, of my DHT test. It was like but it was really low, and then my mistake was I didn't get it checked before I took it. So I don't really have like a baseline. But I'll definitely do that, and then I'll also do a fertility test along with it if I could.
Well, I mean, listen. I mean, when do you plan on? You planning on having children soon?
I'm hoping within the next in 3 years.
Wow. How old's your girlfriend?
3 years. She's older than me.
Does she have kids already?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
None. Yeah, she'll be.
You'll put a ring on that finger?
I want to. Hell yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
good luck,
she's
brother.
29.
Just kidding. What's that? She's 29? Oh, okay. That's not a big discrepancy. That's healthy.
No, yeah, no kids. I want this one to be the one, hopefully. So,
like when you're 50 and she's 52, it makes no difference. If she was 35 now, and you're 50, that makes her closer to 60. So, big difference there. This discrepancy you've got 2 years, that's nothing. You're fine. Have fun with it.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Oh yeah, yeah. My folks are actually a bit concerned about it. Somebody a little bit older than me, but
Are they?
to me it never
That's
really
interesting.
bothered me.
It's only 2 years.
Yeah,
That is interesting. Yeah.
yeah. It's a little. I guess they're kind of more old-fashioned.
So they want you to be with a younger girl?
My age or a slightly younger, yeah.
Interesting.
But it's nothing. Eventually we'll both be in our 50s, and it's like
If you're lucky, you'll be in
it's
your
not
50s.
the same.
If you're lucky.
Yeah.
That's what I tell people all the time when they're concerned about getting older. Like, it's a fucking privilege to get older. Like when Joe's crying to me late at night after he has a couple of drinks. I'm like, brother, you're lucky to be an old man.
Every night lately. Every night lately.
Well, that's cute though. At you guys' age.
It is cute, isn't it? Isn't it? It is cute. Aw.
Well, listen, brother, I'm glad you sound really good. I'm glad you're doing well, and I'm glad that we were able to help you so many years ago when you first called in.
Yeah, it's nice to hear.
Yeah. You guys have been very helpful, not just with, the hair loss subjects, but also like I've called a couple other times about just other things, So you guys have like kind of been like a therapist in a way, also.
Except we're not making $400 an hour from you.
Yeah, I can't believe you guys are still doing this for free.
Yet.
Yeah. I can't believe it either, brother. I think about it as soon as
That's what my wife tells me.
I turn on this camera on Friday and I see Joe's face. I'm like, how am I still doing this?
You're looking all good. You're like, you got your nice button up on all the time, dude. You've been doing this for years.
Well,
that actually reminds me. Before I leave. That actually reminds me. Before I leave, I've actually been wanting to ask this for a while. Is there a way to find? I know you've been doing this since 90s. Is there a way to find clips? Wow.
Yeah, there's some clips out there. I actually have all of them. I may one day put them all online. It'll essentially show you the history of this insane field. I'm talking about every aspect of it. When FUE first came into play, all the craziness from the doctors. I mean, and the truth from some of the doctors too. Like our friend who called in once, who was a little upset about things, and kind of the way he was 20 years ago on the air too. It was very interesting stuff. But yeah, I mean, there's stuff out there. There's some old videos out there when I was streaming the shows through the guys from Queens Network, but essentially in 2009 when I got off the radio, I essentially retired. What does that mean? That means I kind of I didn't want to have my own channel. I was willing to stream on somebody else's channel. I didn't really put up podcasts either. I still don't do that. But now that I'm getting older, and I think that there's a lot of opportunity because the whole industry has changed. I've been spending a little bit more time on social media and trying to build my Instagram, which seems to be working. So that was a long way of saying maybe eventually you'll be able to hear some of the old shows.
Yeah, that'd be cool, dude. That'd be like some good content,
Yeah.
Make good YouTube videos out of that for sure, man.
I'll turn them to cartoons because they're all audio.
You turn the what?
I'll have like a cartoonist make them into a cartoon, or maybe through AI. because they're all
That'd be great.
audio recordings. All right, brother. Listen, it was great hearing from you. You sound good. Congrats
Thank you. Good.
on the regular sex and all that.
Thank you.
Okay. Take care.
I'll keep
Take
in
care,
touch.
buddy.
Thank you.
All right. Happy New Year.
All right.
Bye bye.
Happy New Year.
Happy new hair.
888-659-3727 is the phone number. Guys, you were holding on, and, we'll take your calls if you want to call in. Who is texting me? What's going on here?
I got to tell you, you and I have talked off camera about fasting. I've never done a 3-day fast before.
Yeah.
I just passed the 48th hour of a 72-hour planned fast. I feel fantastic.
That's great. I mean, it could trigger shingles outbreak, so just be aware of that. But otherwise,
That's what that is?
at your age,
That is? And I did it. I'm doing it because I gorged during my holiday because I was at different families' homes, and there was food everywhere. And I was just like, fuck it. I'm eating. I'm not watching anything except the food going in my mouth.
dude, I was in Vegas.
So awesome.
I ate all kinds of stuff. Trust me. Let's see what
And
this
all
is.
kinds of alcohol as well. Yeah. go
I
ahead.
had that as well. A lot of things I probably shouldn't have eaten. Let's see what this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from? Hey, caller.
Hey, did you get me?
I think so.
We did.
Okay,
Did you
okay.
get us?
I'm Josiah. Yeah, okay. I'm Josiah. I'm from Johnson City, Tennessee. I called before, and I learned that
Oh, yeah.
I think Joe, I believe, he's also from Johnson City. So,
In the
but
area? Yeah.
it's been a little bit since I called. Yeah, I kind of had two main questions. One of my questions was I was just curious what's your guys' medical hair routine for both of you guys, and then my second question was I guess like I'm 24, so I'm young, and I called before, and you guys were like, do not get a hair. You guys recommended me to not get a hair transplant yet, or at least wait. But
And you
I was
did.
going to ask if you guys have any recommendations. I didn't get one. No.
Okay.
No,
All right.
I do plan on maybe getting one in my late 20s. I was going to ask, do you guys have recommendations? I know Joe does a series on his channel, kind of like recommendations. Do you guys have like recommendations for maybe like a good kind of doctor in Turkey with like a few? I guess I would kind of want it kind of mid-range, maybe even lower if you think it's okay, because that's the only reason people go to Turkey is for the super cheap transplants. But I'm not trying to be a complete
surprised.
cheapo. I don't mind paying, but
You'd be surprised.
I guess I wanted maybe a
Yeah,
couple
and-
recommendations. Yeah, okay.
And let's slow down for just a second. So, first off, what's your name? I forgot your name.
Josiah.
Who?
Josiah.
Josiah. Yes, sir.
Josiah. Okay. All right. So you did a couple of rapid fire questions there, or comments. First off, when it comes to Turkey, people aren't going to Turkey because it's cheap anymore. Well, some people are, but a lot of people are going there because they think it's actually the best place to go because everyone's going there because it's cheap. So it's kind of taken on a new appearance or a new attraction for people because so many people are going. The uneducated people that are looking into this, they see that and they automatically assume that because everyone's going there, it's because it's the best place to go, not because of the price. That's a secondary benefit because I know of a billionaire, so does Spencer. We know of multi-millionaires and billionaires that go because they just think it's the best place to go. It's not about saving money because obviously they don't need to. So, and then you're talking about mid-tier and then low-tier. What do you mean by that? You talking about pricing? You talking about skill level? What do you mean?
I guess I meant the price-wise, but still quality, like a recommendation.
Yeah. Well, what to you is mid-range and low-range as far as price?
Like I hear on social media all the time, people will be like, I went to Turkey and it cost $3,000. To me, that seems a little cheap just because it's permanent. So I feel like, it's $5,000 to maybe $10,000 mid-range. Because it seems like
Well,
25K
just to let
is
you know,
like
the only thing
United
that's
States.
permanent in those situations is the scarring.
Oh,
That's what's permanent.
Yeah. So I think okay. So you gave me an indication there's some hope here because you're not saying low end is $1,000 and mid range is $1,500 because there are a lot of people out there that think that. So just backing up, I work with several doctors, maybe 15, 16, I lost count at this point, that I believe are very well worth consideration for anyone looking to get surgical hair restoration. And a couple of them are in Turkey. But we don't make specific recommendations, or at least I don't. I know Spencer doesn't, because, like in my case, I've done all the footwork for you as far as looking at clinics, evaluating them based on my own standards and my own experience, having worked in the industry in clinics and being a repair patient and all that stuff in my history. And the way I look at it is, I've brought you to the pond. It's up to you to actually, drink. And the metaphor is you need to look at these for yourself and determine which one's best for you. I've got you to this point. Now you need to take the reins and bring it in. If surgery is actually, the right move for you. So, I'm not going to throw out names for you to consider. That's for you to do based on the education that we put out as well. Like you need to learn about what makes a good hair transplant. Are you a candidate for a hair transplant? What do you need to do before you get a hair transplant? What do you need to know? A whole list of things.
What's your financial situation now?
Yeah.
well, I just graduated college, so I'm getting a job now, and I think my degree, I think I'll be able to make decent money, so I think I'd be able to afford it. I wouldn't want something super expensive though, still, just because
What about OnlyFans? I'm just kidding.
I don't know if I'm there yet. No,
Yeah. Listen, no one wants anything super expensive, and honestly, I wish it would be great if I could just have and I can if I wanted to, but just an organization of cheap hair transplant surgeons. That'd be wonderful. I would love everyone to be able to afford it and afford a good quality surgery if they are candidates. But that's just not the way it works. It's been turned into a commodity. It is now a commodity. It is now a price war because of what's happening overseas. And it's become a price war here in the U.S. I drive here, I go to Westwood, whatever, I see billboards of guys who are doing NeoGraft hair transplants, $2 a graft. It's insane. This is real surgery. So you have to keep that take that under advisement. There are some really good doctors in Turkey, but they're not going to be the cheapest ones. And, there are physicians who are associated with my organization, which is iahrs.org. There are physicians who Joe directly works with. These are all, quality clinics where you're going to get, at least have a fighting chance of having a good result. No guarantees. Any one of these doctors could fuck you up. Any one of their staff can fuck you up. That's the nature of this game. I was interviewing a doctor who's applying to the organization today, and I told him, look, you have to come to terms with the fact that I'm going to say exactly what I just told you on the show. I'm going to talk about this on social media, and I'm going to let people know that surgery is the last resort. If you want to be a part of this association, if you're accepted, you have to understand I'm not going to sell surgery. I'm going to try to talk people out of it. So the fact that you just got out of college and you're planning on having surgery possibly when you're 29, how do you know you're going to need surgery when you're 29? Are you on medication at this point? Are you treating your hair loss?
Yeah, I got on finasteride when I was maybe 21, 2021. I'd have to look at. I have receipts probably, but it's been years at this point.
Okay.
And my hairline. Joe asked me last time what my hairline looked like, and I kind of described it to him, and he was like, "It kind of sounds like Hugh Jackman." That's no problem, and it is similar to Hugh Jackman's. I feel like his just seems a little, mine seems more uneven than his, and I feel like he's just more attractive, so it looks better on him. So I still want like a really nice hairline, not super low, but I want it kind of evened out still. I feel like I kind of always will. I don't know why, but it's almost like an obsession. I'm sure a lot of the guys who are watching
Why don't you just
probably
fix your
understand a little
face?
bit, but I'm trying to get leaner. I feel like that'll help a little bit, but
Just kidding. No, but there, it's funny because there are people out there that are like, they don't think, who have like normal mature hairlines and who don't, they don't really love the way that they look and they have a lot of hair still. And they think a hair transplant is going to make all the difference when in some cases it could be something that's more predictable, like chin augmentation or a nose job or something, as opposed to having your hair done, which is a lot less predictable than some of these other surgeries. I'm not telling you to get plastic surgery, but that's kind of what came to mind. If you actually have a hairline right now like Hugh Jackman, I mean, I guess it depends on your facial proportions and the size of your forehead and things like that as to why you want to get it lowered again. But I mean, that's a pretty...
yeah, I kind of have a big forehead, so it kind of like looks a little odd.
I get it.
I will say this.
Yeah.
I will say and this will kind of go to y'all's point. When the finasteride has actually worked great. My hair loss has basically stopped since I was like 20 or 21. When I was 20 or 21, I feel like I actually looked, to me, it looked bad. Now that I'm like 24 and I'll be 25 this year, I feel like it actually almost looks normal. Like when I see other 25-year-olds, I feel like I look very similar.
Yeah.
And in fact, I feel like I'm holding up great compared to a lot of people. So when I'm 29, I feel like if I actually have the same head of hair I do now, I think I'll almost be above average, depending. I'm not sure. That's just what I've seen. So like there is a chance I won't get one, but I still almost have like a love for hairlines. I think just because it happened to me so young. But
well, I think that's what it is. And also, dude, if you just need a very slight hairline lowering to make yourself feel better, that could end up being a disaster. So it's interesting that you're saying like you're less affected by the look of your hair right now than you were when you were younger, because that's what happens. And you're comparing yourself to other people in your age range. And you will see that if you're able to hold on to what you have until you're 29, you will be like in the top 10% of people. I have young kids now that I'm doing more on Instagram. I could be their grandfather. And I'm talking about, I did this one video that had like 11 million views or something. And all these kids are coming out saying, dude, look at your hairline. It starts at the back of your head or whatever it is. And I'm thinking to myself, A, maybe they don't realize I'm almost 60, and that's a compliment. But Jesus Christ, they have such unrealistic expectations of what a mature hairline is, and especially a guy in his 30s, 40s, 50s, or 60s, what they're going to look like. It's very rare to have a lot like a Ronald Reagan hairline, or who are some guys? George Clooney has a low hairline. Brad Pitt still has a low, adolescent type of hairline. That is rare. That's like the top, 0.01% of human beings.
okay, I have another question actually. This is a side question. Did you say it was in California that are doing hair transplants for $2 a graft? Is that what you said?
Yeah, right in Westwood. Yeah. There's a big sign.
I have to make a point of this because last time I called, and it was probably about a year ago, I actually specifically asked Joe. I was like, Joe, do you ever think in the United States we'll get cheaper hairlines, like cheaper hair transplants for hairlines like we kind of do in Turkey? He was like, I don't see it happening. So I guess
Joe's never been great with the predictions. I'm just kidding.
I don't recall that being. I don't recall that, but I've known for longer than a year that there were $2 hair transplants in LA. I've known that for quite a while. So maybe there was some more to that question that you aren't remembering or something specific. But I've known about this for a long. There were $2 hair transplants 10 years ago, at least 15 years ago in LA.
Oh,
there was a place in Culver City that I used to drive by when I was doing the show of Westwood One, and they had neon signs in their window. They had like the entire floor, $2 a graft hair transplants in a really shitty area of Culver City too.
Yeah.
Do these places give high quality, or would you guys say maybe not?
No.
Negative.
Negative. Actually, this particular clinic, if I remember, somebody died.
Oh man.
Just saying. I mean, it can happen anywhere.
It has happened a lot of places.
Yeah,
Or not a lot
it
of
happened to a
places,
guy, kind of
Surprising
well-known
places.
guy in the Chicagoland area not too long ago, maybe 5, 10 years ago, something like that.
I was going to say about 5 or 6, maybe 7 years.
Why do you think it's such a disaster to, like, if I got like a very slight lowering, I mean, it would literally be like just in the corners, a quarter to half inch, and I feel like it would almost give me, I feel like a Hollywood-esque style hairline. It's just a disaster because if I keep balding and I can't stop it, it will just like look bad.
That, and what happens if you have shock loss? What happens if you have some sort of trauma from the surgery? What happens if a couple of ones, 2s and 3s are accidentally placed, or they thought it was a one hair graft in the hairline, ends up the hair was in a telogen phase, and all of a sudden pops through, and you have like these pluggy hairs, and you have to get. I mean, once you start and you go under the knife, it's a process, man. It could start a whole
It's very rare that
cascade
anyone
of shit.
gets just one surgery.
Yeah.
Very rare that anyone gets, even if it's just quote unquote, just fill in the temple type of thing, just a little bit here, just a little bit there. That can set you up for 2 more surgeries, because if that one gets screwed up, if that one comes in looking like a disaster, then it might take 2 more surgeries just to get you back to where you wanted to be, or back where you were before you even had surgery, if that's what your goal is, to look normal. Because there's a removal process, and that's very rarely done successfully in just one surgery. So that might be 2 more, it might even be 3 more surgeries, 2 just to remove the grafts, and then the third one, 4 overall, to create a new hairline that looks natural to camouflage the crap that was done before. It's very rarely so easy just to get one surgery and then you're good for 30 years, 40 years, whatever. Very rare. It can be another situation of, or it could be a simple situation of hair greed. Let's say it does work out, and then you're like, you know what? That first one wasn't so bad. Maybe I'll get another one. And then you get screwed up from that one. The bottom line is, if you can avoid surgery, then do avoid surgery. As long as you can. With the hairline you got now, ride that baby for as long as you possibly can. Try everything you can under the sun that is non-surgical to prevent more hair loss, or to thicken what you have, or whatever. This isn't just for you. This is for everyone out there. Surgery can be great. I mean, who are you talking to? I've had 10 of them.
Yep.
The first 2
man.
sucked. They were terrible. Down in Knoxville. Absolute terrible outcomes. Everything since then, almost everything, pretty damn good.
Are
Lucky.
the Knoxville people still open?
No, the doctor passed away many years ago.
Man.
So he had a
that's
clinic
terrible.
in Knoxville, and he had one in Mountain City, of all places, because that's where his family is from.
I know Mountain City. Wow.
And then a third location in Ohio, for when he'd be up there at his hunting lodge. He'd do some hair transplants over the weekend, or a few days during the weekend when he was up there. So he's one of those kinds of guys. He used to advertise in the Yellow Pages.
After?
Oh yeah, well the reason why he did the second one is because I was complaining about the first one.
But you said the second one was also terrible. So you just like doubled down on it?
Yep. He doubled down on the terrible. Yeah. The terrible didn't get better.
Yeah, unfortunately, it took a long time for Joe to mature and become as wise as he has. He didn't quite have access to that part of his brain at that stage of his life.
I didn't actually.
I mean, so if you've had 10, like, you understand how I feel then. Like, if I just want maybe 1 or 2 or even 3, I mean, I'm still not even that many though.
Brother, hang up the phone. Go live your life. This is this is turning out going in a bad position, man. We saved you from having it the first time. Right now, you're telling us, you know what? Now that I'm older, I'm not as concerned, or I mean, my hairline looks better now.
Yeah, you're right.
You know,
Mhm.
if you save what you have right now, by the time you're 29 years old and your face matures even more, and everyone else is going bald around you, you're going to be like, I'm doing pretty good here.
Yeah.
Doesn't finasteride stop like working as well after like so many years?
No.
That's, there's no reason
Okay,
to
I've
think
heard that, but I don't know.
Yeah, everyone says that because,
Yeah.
you know, some people's genetics are just too strong. And eventually, you know, finasteride doesn't necessarily stop things. It slows things down, if you're lucky, to a crawl. I continued to progress over the years. When I started, I didn't have to paint my bald spot, but I've been on the drug for 30 years, you know? So, and I really still don't have to paint my bald spot if I didn't want to. I just walk around with a little bit of thinner hair in the back, you know? So it's not like horrendous where I have this gaping, you know, balding area, which I would have had if I wasn't on the drug.
But it is a piece of art. It is a piece of art. I've seen it in person. It should be framed. He should have a frame around his crown, walking around.
It's a work of art.
It really is a.
The
work of
hardest
art.
part is to create the volume so it doesn't look like my head is flat compared to the hair around it.
Josiah, let me say this, okay?
Oh. Okay.
If I was when I was your age, just 2 years younger, when I was your age, if I had someone like me telling me the truth about hair transplantation, I never would have had my first hair transplant. I had two different people to talk to about this. One was my best friend who I went down to the clinic with for moral support in the first place. I wasn't even there for consultation. I was just there because he's like, come with me. It's like, fine, whatever. So, back then it's like a road trip to Knoxville meant fun. It's like, all right. And the other person I had to talk to was, wait for it, the doctor. Because he's the one that pointed out to me that, he's like, and we can help you too. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, you're losing your hair. I said, no, I'm not. And he goes, yes, you are. And I thought, shit, he sees through me. I guess he can help me. That was it. There was no one else around to talk to about this kind of thing, much less anyone that knew what the hell they're talking about. So,
what year was this,
move
Joe?
on. 1992.
Wow.
32 years ago.
Would you guys? Oh man. Assuming I just stay on medication. What do you guys feel comfortable sharing your kind of medical routine or no? Like I'm kind of interested. Like, are you guys all on finasteride?
That is a proprietary
it is a
situation.
It's top secret situation.
Oh man.
I'm on 5 milligrams of finasteride. Now I take it about twice per week, like every fourth day. I take a full dose, 5 milligrams. I was taking it once a week for many, many years. I started off as a young man popping a full 5 milligram dose every day because that's all that was available. No one really knew about the 1 milligram dose. And I went all the way up to 7.5 milligrams at one point because I was going through a shed, and this was not information that was, I wasn't even on the internet yet. So this was not information that was readily available. I thought, wait a second, maybe I need more of the medication. On all those meds, at least during that time of my life, I had no adverse side effects. But once I started to research my book and learn more about the medication, I titrated down to the lowest dose possible that I felt I would do well on. And I did essentially intermittent therapy for decades. And I'm still doing intermittent therapy. That's all that I do. I obviously, wear hairspray and paint my head. I have experimented with partial, hair units, yarmulkes, things like that. The paint works for me. So, I do that. But that's it. And I'll be 60 in 6 months. Anything else?
No, I appreciate you guys talking to me. I'll probably call back maybe next year. I always listen in though sometimes. So.
Now, listen, brother. Good luck. I'm
All right.
glad that we were able to kind of put the brakes on things for you, and you didn't do a hair transplant yet. I hope you never need to. But if you are one day you wake up with cold sweat and you really, you're really thinking about it, call us first. All right.
Absolutely.
All right, I'll maybe throw you guys a call if you guys are still doing it. I mean, you guys are doing this a long time, so we'll see.
Yeah, we're old, so we'll see. All right, brother. Listen, good luck.
All right,
All right,
you guys have a
Take
nice
care,
night
Josiah.
too. Bye.
take care.
Bye-bye. Go Bucks.
Oh, yeah, I've been doing this for a long time.
Long damn time.
Doesn't get any more fun either. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, am I live?
You are live. I
You
think
are.
you're live. Yeah.
Perfect. Hi, Spencer. Hi, Joe. How you guys doing?
Oh, we're good.
Can't
What's
complain.
happening?
Good stuff. So I'm Ethan. I live in Illinois.
Okay.
Really
Ethan.
want to have a hair. Hey, Joe. Really want to have a hair transplant, but just wanted to kind of talk through my situation with you guys to see what you think.
Sure.
Okay.
So I've had two consultations with two of the IAHRS surgeons. One was with Dr. Panine in Chicago,
Okay.
and the other was with Dr. Anderson down in Atlanta.
Okay.
Both doctors, after examining me, said, you'd be a good candidate. I'm about a Norwood 3. And what's interesting is one recommended FUE at 2,000 grafts, and the other recommended FUT at 1,400 grafts.
So Panine,
and so I'm-
recommended the FUT, and Anderson recommended the FUE.
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
Yeah.
That is correct. Yep. So Dr. Panine wanted more of a dense pack look, is the way he described it. Whereas when I was with Dr. Anderson, I kind of got the impression that, he wanted to work with a few less grafts to kind of give more of the illusion of density and not necessarily that dense pack.
Right.
So just, trying to think about my options. I'm 27 years old, on brand Propecia every day. I do 0.5 milligram every day, and then I take 1 milligram on Sunday. So on finasteride every day, nothing else. My hair loss is very stable. Have good, thick hair, but in a fairly broad forelock. It's just mainly recession in that temple region, and a little bit of thinning in the front forelock. But just trying to talk through my options and see what you guys think.
Well,
What's your family history
Go ahead, Joe.
of hair loss like? Sorry.
So my dad has a full head of hair. He's about 63 years old. Mother's father, though, is completely bald. Went completely bald at the age of 30. So I have a feeling that's where I would be if it weren't for the medication. I have to say, though, I'm comfortable with strip surgery. I've been an athlete my whole life, and I've got kind of scars all over. And the idea of one scar or even having multiple strips does not bug me. So it's not a matter of fear of a scar or anything like that, because I know there's no scarless surgery. It's just a matter of hey, if I have to have 1 or 2 procedures, how long would this potentially last me?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think this presents an interesting situation, because you said that you think that your medications prevented you from going down the route of your grandfather on your maternal side.
Right.
Which side of the family? Well, I'll ask you why, but first answer this question: which side of the family do you resemble most?
I would probably say the maternal side.
Okay.
I'd probably
All right.
say the maternal side. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. So, why do you think that you'd be more like your grandfather at the same age, but you aren't because of medication? Why is this? What indicators do you have?
Well, when I was, I'd say 22 years old, I was losing hair fairly rapidly and decided to get on the medication at that time. But looking at photographs of my grandfather at the same age, he had that same pattern of baldness. So the pattern of baldness, I don't want to say it was identical. His was probably a little bit worse, but it kind of eerily resembled my late grandfather's loss. So
right.
it's just one of those things where, I figured that I would continue to progress down that path given that history. But, thank God for the medication.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, look, I'm of the opinion, and I won't speak for Spencer, but
Please don't.
I think he is too. But I'm of the opinion that if there's a strong chance of aggressive hair loss in your future, I think a couple of solid strips are not mandated, but I think they're beneficial because there is a sweet spot in the occipital donor region, and I just think that's for a lot of people that's the best route to start with. It doesn't mean you got to continue with FUT. And of course there are the downsides or potential downsides of FUT, the stretch back of the scar, nerve damage, blah, 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 all these things that are out there. But I think that if it's performed properly, I think it can be beneficial. I look at my own case in that regard where I would be a strong Norwood 7 by now, no question about it, if it wasn't for, medications preventing me from getting quite that far for the past 20 some odd years. But strip has been the majority of surgeries I've had, and they were well executed. Sure. There was a downside with one of them. I did need a scar repair because in the occipital region, I did have some stretch back. That was fixed. We haven't touched that area since. We put some FUE grafts into it later on. That worked well. We continued to go into the sides where I had more strip work done, and that worked out just fine. And that allowed me to more or less max out my donor area before we switched to FUE. Is that the route for everyone? Absolutely not. But it can be for some people, and I think you should consider that at least one or two good strips before you jump on that bandwagon of FUE if you need that much surgery in the future. Medication may hold you for a very long time. We don't know.
Sure.
I think it's I think it's interesting. I'm glad that you explained that, where you think you'd be without medication based on your genetics and which side of the family you look like on with the maternal side.
It was pretty, I don't want to say inevitable, but it was just a little eerie how similar the hair loss pattern was to my grandfather. What I will say is both doctors, after assessing my scalp, said, you've got a good lax scalp, and they believe that they could, have at least two decent-sized strips from that laxity I have back there, which was a good thing in my mind because, if I have my first strip, which is like 2,000 grafts, and I continue to recede, I could potentially have another strip of 2,000-3,000 grafts to, maybe beef up that frontal hairline and then, work back behind it as well. So just something I've been considering, but I
didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to say that I really agree with Joe. I've avoided having hair transplant surgery all these years, but I've also, while I was a huge proponent for FUE surgery to the point where at one point Joe and I were at odds many, many years ago over it. Not really at odds, but we disagreed.
No.
I'm also a realist and understand the limitations of FUE surgery. I always thought it should be used as an adjunct to a good strip. The only real DHT-resistant area of your scalp, usually even in the most aggressive hair loss sufferers, is really center occipital hair. Now, for guys who are just going to progress to a Norwood 6 or normal Norwood 7, then the occipital region, including up over, towards the temporal points, can all be pretty resistant and last a very long time. In order to get the most bang for your buck and the most grafts moved, you have to have a strip. If you're going to have aggressive hair loss, the only way to really ensure long-lasting results, and when I say ensure, have the best fighting chance of long-lasting results, is to move as many grafts from that particular area as you can. And the only way to do that is via strip. And they're also dissecting the grafts under, three-dimensionally, under magnification. So there's also, you're going to have chubbier grafts. There's something to be said about that as well. They're not quite as denuded as FUE grafts. No one talks about that, but there's something that's now being talked about more, but still not really being reported that much, about recipient site dominance that is somehow kind of creeping into this whole 100% FUE hair transplant situation, where now they're thinking that if there's more of a buffer left from the back of your scalp, the skin, the tissue around the hair follicle, that could actually help to avoid possible recipient site dominance as well. Back in the day when they were just doing plugs, they really thought that this hair will last forever. But that's because there was so much tissue around the grafts, and it really took on that the DHT resistant donor area. Now they're kind of thinking there's, people could have a double whammy in some cases, where hair is being taken from less DHT resistant areas from the back, being implanted in more of a denuded form with less tissue around it. So it's not lasting as long as they think. Does that make sense?
I see what you. Yeah, no, it totally makes sense, and I see what you're saying. And when I went into these consultations, I kind of initially had a bias towards strip, and when I told them I wanted strip, being, a younger guy, they kind of looked at me, Spencer, as you'd say, with a jaundiced eye, because I think everybody comes in wanting FUE, so they're like, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But
did you talk to Kobren? Just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Did you talk to Kobren?
Yeah.
But no, what you're saying makes sense with just the strips holding up better, and what I can kind of ascertain too from what I've heard is that when they are slivering the strip, there's less transection, if you will, or when they're at least removing the strip compared to FUE.
Well, first they sliver it, then they're dissecting they're just individual grafts. But I mean, at the very least, if you have a good team, they're able to dissect it three-dimensionally, and usually there's going to be a little bit more tissue around each graft. And I think that potentially plays a bigger role than a lot of physicians currently understand, and only a few physicians are talking about in the hallways of these, of these meetings.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So,
well,
I'm not going to make a lot of friends in the medical world and the hair transplant world talking about this, but that's just the truth, and it's coming out now.
Sure.
And people are wondering, like, why aren't these transplants lasting as long as strips? And it's kind of like, both because hair's being removed from the top, bottom, sides of the safe zone, and there's less tissue. These are less chubby grafts. And that's not to say that if Anderson gave you a transplant, you being on medication doesn't mean that transplant's not going to last you for decades. It's very possible that it will. But if you want the most bang for your buck, and if you want to have the most robust, long-lasting transplant, considering a strip is definitely an option that not many young guys really are critically thinking about. And it's interesting that you are.
Well, Dr. Anderson did say he could do a strip. He recommended FUE, but with it only being 1,400 grafts, I think a strip with 1,400 grafts, to me, if I want to get a strip taken out, I would want that to be, 1,800 to 2,000 grafts. And to me, that's really, kind of teetering on a, moderate to bigger session. But I'm a little leery about having a strip with it only being 1,400 grafts, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, for sure.
Makes a lot of sense, for sure. But look, I don't know Dr. Panine. I know of him, but I don't know him. I do know Dr. Anderson, and I feel like he's very capable. But if you want to consider FUT, I'm not sure it's. I don't like hearing, I can offer it for you, but I recommend FUE. You want someone that feels strong about FUT, that says, this is something I believe in. I think it's a great option for your case. I know that Dr. Anderson would do a fine job. There's nothing that tells me otherwise. But if you're leaning towards FUT, go ahead.
Yeah, he I didn't get any impression from him that he was uncomfortable with FUT. I mean, obviously, I know he's a world-class surgeon. He would do a great job, but with him out of the gate being
that's
like,
that's how he learned how to do it, and he learned from an old school original FUT guy, and they were doing big cases and doing pure follicular units. So I mean, he learned how to do it right.
Sure.
You know, but I understand your point.
Well, no,
I understand, and I understand Joe's point. This is a tough call. It really is. Panine has a really good track record. He's kind of not as well known in the field, at least on social media, I should say. And you know, I mean, he really does prefer doing strip, not because he doesn't have the capability of doing FUE. You know, every doctor practices medicine the way that they think is going to be best for their patients in general. And he sees really good results in his practice. And he's one of the few guys that really offers a lot of FUT still.
Sure.
You should have a third consultation.
He showed me. Yeah, he showed me kind of his workbook and his results, and some of his strip scars look, you know, fantastic. That's not to say I would have the same result, but you know, knowing that he's got a good track record with strip is, you know, what drew me to his practice in general. But you know, I'm planning on having maybe one or two more consultations until, you know, I can kind of narrow it down to see what I want to do. But I really appreciate you guys' feedback.
Yeah, you should have as many in person as you can. But you know, it's interesting. These guys are willing to do online consultations for free. Just get as many assessments as you can. In person is always the best, obviously. But you know, see what somebody else says, and the fact that you are walking in saying you're interested in the strip, give them the reasons why, which I'm sure you did. You'll get a feel of whether or not they're going to be comfortable providing you with what you think you need. And
definitely,
you may come to a different conclusion. You may end up getting FUE if you want it. I mean, I don't know. But I think just having the education and the information to make a better informed decision, obviously that's why you're calling the program. But either way, it's a big decision. So you should take your time.
It is a big decision, and I think with my age, being a younger guy, and with the bulk of the hairs going into the frontal hairline, those are the hairs that, you know, when you walk into a room, that's what people see right away. I want that to last.
Right.
And so that's, you know, when I think about FUE and it not lasting as long or as great, that's where the strip makes the most sense to me. So I'd kind of like to see Dr. Nussbaum down in Florida to see what he would have to say.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think, you know, the more opinions, the better. But that's just where I'm at right now. So I'll definitely keep you guys updated and call the show back if I decide to move forward.
Yeah, please do, brother. Call us either way.
Yep, you got it.
All right,
thanks,
take care.
guys.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks for calling.
Bye.
All right, Joe, let's call it a night.
Let's call it a night.
All right.
It was a good show.
Yeah, I want to thank
calls.
everyone for calling in and for everyone hanging out in Joe's chat room. I forgot to announce it on Instagram. Whatever. You can, if you see this, if you happen to be on the Bald Truth, check out Joe Tillman's The Hair Transplant channel at youtube.com/hair transplant mentor. Subscribe to his channel. Like this video. Ring whatever bells you're supposed to ring. You know, you could follow Joe on Instagram at Joe Tillman Official. And anyone who's in Joe's chat who hasn't followed me on Instagram yet, it's at Spencer Kobren. Just follow me.
Just do it.
And for everyone in the Republic of India, if I can give you an absolute solution, I would. Can't do it. These seem to be the people who complain the most about what I do on Instagram, and it's okay. But I can't give you all the answers. All I can do is help you avoid and navigate this insane cesspool of an industry safely, and help you possibly avoid being disfigured and ripped off. I can tell you the resources to go to do your due diligence. I can give you the truth about hair transplant surgery. I can tell you my thoughts on medications and different products and services. But I cannot offer you a solution to your hair loss because everybody's different. Not all of you can be helped. If you're lucky, you can be. But if you want the truth and you want the latest and greatest, follow me. If you don't want the truth, my account is not for you. Until next time.
Wow.
Until next time, be strong. God bless. Happy New Year. Thank you so much for listening. Good night.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the programme, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you.